The board
You
now
should
says
try
much
to-
better for Ding Liren.
Oh, Ding plays immediately. If he does anything else, it says that Ding has an 85% chance
Wow.
or more.
Oh my
85.
gosh.
That's massive.
He finds the move. Incredible.
Yes,
Did
he
he
does
not
it.
play
He
the
plays the knight move. Look how nervous he was when he was playing that move.
We are going to see a tied match with 2 to go.
He is so nervous. He knows he is losing this game.
Every sign's on the board. Let's go.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Take post-game show series. This is the round 12 episode, and today I'm just going to get right into it. I am joined by two very special guests, none other than Magnus Carlsen and Hikaru Nakamura, and we're going to break down Game 12. We didn't have enough panels on the screen, apparently. You know, they made me fill in, so I'm going to have to fill some very big and important shoes today. In the absence of Kaya. Gentlemen, I would like to go to our guest who has not joined us yet for these shows. Hikaru, give me your quick thoughts on game number 12.
Yeah, so game number 12 was very surprising. I think certainly after what happened in game 11, a lot of people expected Ding to kind of fall apart. And to me, it seemed like it was a case of the opening preparation from Gukesh simply going wrong right away. And once Ding got an easy position to play with simple plans, he really just rolled over Gukesh as though it was just, I mean, honestly, just like a normal kind of game where you have someone who's much higher rated than the other player. So it was very weird for me, but I think certainly for the fans, it's great because now there's a lot of tension as we head into the home stretch.
Magnus, your thoughts?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This did look like a World Championship game, but not one from this century. This looked like an Alekhine, Bogoljubov kind of match, or somebody who was just severely outmatched, where you sort of get some playable position from the opening, and then essentially the better player wins. And today, the better player was Ding by far. So yeah, what Hikaru said as well, and this has happened a few times in the match when Ding actually gets the chance um, to sort of just put his pieces on good squares and play natural moves. He can do that, and he was able to do that without much resistance. So, an amazing turn. I think we used the term baffling yesterday. I think it will probably come up today as well, but certainly unexpected and very exciting.
Yeah, guys, I will say for me, look, I've watched in my lifetime that I can remember, I've watched Anand World Championships, I've watched Kramnik World Championships, I've watched ones where I'm like sentient as a human and I can remember them. I obviously watched a lot of Magnus ones, the one last year, and now this one. And this one by far is the most confusing because one of the quotes from yesterday's recap was maybe the most likely scenario is Ding completely falls apart. And today he shows up and he's just a completely new person. But we should talk specifics. So let's throw the chessboard up on the screen and talk about the opening phase because, like always, that's where we start in the post-game show. And I'll go to you, Magnus, with your revitalized and very, very, very high-quality audio today, may I say. You are crystal clear in my ear. What sticks out to you in the opening?
Yeah, I mean it's good to be somewhere that doesn't have cars racing by in a very quick way. So to everybody who was watching yesterday, there was literally no other time that I could have done it, and I apologize for that. Um, Regardless, I think we very much predicted that Dane would go for the English today, and that we'd probably see something a little bit more solid from Gukesh than the surprise he had last time with the Bishop B4, Bishop B7 line, even though that is objectively a very decent line as well. And finally, 2 days in a row we get the same thing in the opening, that apparently these guys are have both prepared different lines in the Catalan that is not the main line with Bishop E7, and so they prefer to go for this c5 d4 thing. And I understand it's your preparation. You want to, yeah, you want to play where you're prepared for the match, regardless of the match situation. But it turned out both yesterday and today that they were not well prepared at all with black, and then you end up just giving your opponent a playable position kind of for free. Um, I should mention that I did the same thing when I was up two against Nepo, and he played the English. I went for an early d4, but at least I won the game, so who cares? And his position was never more than like semi-playable. I was always fine. But I was actually on a plane today, and I saw the first seven or eight moves, and I was a bit confused, thinking that this looks very playable for Ding, and I understand that Gukesh wants to keep the concept sort of as simple as possible. He thinks that if he goes for an early c5, you get this Benoni structure that you got yesterday, which is a bit unbalanced. Like Gukesh actually wanted that structure yesterday, so it's understandable that he didn't want it. Um, but clearly he was not into the details well enough, because he didn't never managed to come anywhere near a position that was just completely equal.
Yeah, and so if we move forward, like let's say 2-3 moves, I'm gonna sort of drop it off to Hikaru here. You can, like Magnus said, you can play c5 for the Benoni, you can play knight c6. Hikaru, help me understand why bishop e7. Like, I understand e6 to e5. It's generally the way you play a position like this, and the bishop is a bit more active. Gukesh obviously went for something a bit original, but the position just seemed a little hard to play, and he kind of was out of moves.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the question is exactly what did the players prepare in the Catalans? Because I do feel like when it comes to the openings, especially the last two games, if you look at it from Gukesh's perspective, going to yesterday's game, he needed to try something different. I mean, obviously there are ideas within the Queen's Gambit decline that he could have gone towards, or maybe the French if he wanted to go back. But the English/Catalan, where you play g3, bishop g2 very early, it seems like a reasonably logical choice for both players. So I'm a little bit confused as to what happened. And Gukesh was moving instantly in this game, but the position was such that it felt like it was more about the strategy and the plans versus pure calculation. And I think after bishop e7, I mean, with Ding trading on d4, or actually the trade on e3 occurring, and he's playing for d4, it becomes very, very simple. And I just really don't know what Gukesh was doing. I mean, it's just strange to me, and I wish there was a better explanation, but I was just confused, frankly.
I really think that Gukesh, sort of everywhere he wanted to carve his own path, play something that's reasonable, but not the most well known, and that is why he goes for knight c6 instead of c5, and so on. And maybe in a different match situation, he wouldn't have been so unhappy with this, but it's just it seems it's just feels, I don't know about you, Ikari, but it just feels a bit easier for White to play. White can always sort of equalize with the move d4 later, and the it's just very harmonious. And we've seen so far in the match that Dean can play. He can actually play when he's not being pressured. So it yeah, baffling. First time, it's baffling.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say also that was kind of thing as Ding, as usual, spending a lot of time in the opening, but because he always has d4 to simplify, there's really no risk whatsoever, and you can just play around this d4 idea. And I mean, I thought even the position, because Ding was moving very quickly up until this moment after we got up until h3 was played, and just looking at the position optically, I don't understand it. I mean, maybe the players, the way they prepare is different. Of course, I haven't played a world championship match, but you have, Magnus. And I mean, I guess the question I would ask you is, do you review some of these lines specifically before the game, or like in this case, do you think the players actually, they're literally relying on preparation they did maybe a week or 2 weeks ago, as opposed to looking at the day of the game?
I would say if Gukesh's seconds were not on him to say that this this concept with one c4 and an early g3, if they were not on him to say that you need to take this very seriously today, then they're not doing their job. Because we were saying it, I think anybody who followed this match and knows a lot about chess would say this was not rocket science. Everybody could expect that this is what Ding was most likely to go for. So the idea that he only reviewed this um, days ago, that's hard to believe. Like at the start of the match, you sort of review everything. Let's say for my match against Fabiano, I was looking at my d4, c4, knight f3, like all those files every game, and then after a while, I sort of understood that he was mainly going for e4, so I would check those other files as well, but not as thoroughly. But in this game specifically, it was very much expected, and I have to say that when Nepo played 1c4 against me, it was not a surprise at all because he was not getting anywhere in the Marshall as white, and he had not wheeled out the Italian yet. So we really thought that this was what he was going to go for because he'd done that in the Catalan as well. So Gukesh, like this must have been on top of his mind, but I don't get it. It's it's just
Guys, let
strange.
me let me jump in here, and before we talk about the middle game, because there's going to be a moment where Gukesh spends 15 minutes. That's the official kind of ending of the preparation. That's the move h6. We don't have to go there just yet. I have two very quick questions to both of you. I can start with Hikaru. Gukesh is in a spot in game 12 where he's leading the match, and I've heard many chess players say that one of the hardest things to do is lead a match and play to not lose. And this kind of exists in World Championship, but also World Cup, because World Cup is best of two until the final. So being up 1-0 in chess and having to just play to not lose and change your playing style, change your opening. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I don't understand about this opening is it feels like when you go e6 on move one, the whole point is to be super solid because obviously you could play the English with e5. I mean, there are many lines that are fine. So when you play e6 and d5, it feels like the goal is to be solid. And then you play d4, and I mean, I don't want to be too critical, obviously, of the players, but it feels like this is something that you would prepare for some open tournament where you're playing like a 2550 or 2600, and it's like you want to be solid, but you also want to have play in the position versus trying to kill the game. And so with no trades, especially, it's very strange because it's not forcing whatsoever. When you want to try and make a draw, usually you're going to play something where pieces come off the board as early as possible. And if you expect your opponent to go all in or go crazy, playing c4 and g3 is one of the best ways to do it, especially in this match where Ding has shown absolutely nothing whatsoever. I mean, you could say he got a very tiny advantage in that e4 game, but he's shown nothing in e4. The London, obviously, he's already played it twice. You can't really think of that as being a serious try at this point. So it's something that should be expected. And it felt to me like this is some kind of preparation for an open tournament where you want to be solid, but you're also trying to win, I guess, if that makes any sense.
I don't know. Yeah, it
Yeah,
makes
I think they 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 pre I think they just hadn't done a good enough job. I think they prepared this, and so this is what will play, and they know that the position is objectively equal. And they probably like haven't done a good enough job to review. Like he has a variation of on the concept, right? He goes knight c6 instead of c5, not to get the Benoni structure, and then he goes bishop e7 instead of e5 because he feels like this structure is somehow a bit simpler than the one where you get the black pawn on d4, and you get that sort of Benoni structure without the pawn on c5, which has its advantages and disadvantages. Chiefly, the advantage is that the c5 square is available for the bishop or knight, and the disadvantage is that the d4 pawn is a little bit weaker. But he had his own concept which I understand that it feels a bit more solid. To just have the pawn on e5 becomes more sort of like a weird e4 opening kind of thing where white has gone for like an e takes d5 and then played c4 for whatever reason, but it's so nice and harmonious. Right, yeah. I think we got to move on because we're not gonna get any wiser.
Well, then I will end with this one-liner. Hikaru, rate Gukesh's opening choice 1 to 10.
I mean, I think the opening choice is fine, but not knowing what he's doing and just playing game, it's probably like a 4. I would say 4 out of 10.
Magnus?
Yeah, I'm not gonna go there. Seeing as we've been said to be too critical already. But I think yeah, 4 is the most.
Okay, let's go to H6, guys. I'm not gonna lie. This game for me, I was looking for what Gukesh could have done differently, and I don't really know. H6, he spent 15 minutes. Ding just started making a series of improving moves. A lot has been said about how fast he played some of these moves. A3 is logical, trying to prepare B4, securing the square for the knight, which he ended up using. Then he played H3, Queen C2. He brought his king to H2. Very normal idea in not just Englishes, but also Viennas. There's a lot of Viennas. You make these 2 improving moves. Ding played well. He played pretty fast compared to normal. And right around here, let's go forward 1 or 2 moves. Gukesh kind of had to maybe create counterplay with his kingside knight. He had to get it to C5 a lot faster. And he sort of didn't do that. So I will start with Magnus now. I'm going to kind of go to you and say,
let's go back
okay.
a bunch of moves when Gukesh went for H6. Yeah,
Okay.
when Gukesh went for H6, right? Before that move. Because here you've got, I feel like the one moment probably where Gukesh can force the game a little bit by playing the move knight to G4. And if you've prepared this, that's the sort of solution that you'd expect him to have, right? Because it is very forcing, assuming that either with the inclusion of A3, A5, Rook E1 is sort of the most critical move, then you can get this more or less by force. And Knight G4, I don't know the answer, but I think it comes like at least close to clarifying the position where black like may be nominally a bit worse, but you can see the end of the light at the end of the tunnel there. It is simplified. While if you go H6 as he did, um, there's not going to be simplification. Like Ding did it excellently with A3, provoking A5, getting the square for the knight on B5, and then with the move H3, regardless of whether it's like technically the best move, practically this is great. Now there are not going to be any traits, basically. There's not going to be anything that can make Gukesh's position very simple. Yes, he can go knight d4 at some point later, trading that knight, but that's still going to give um, Ding plenty of play in the position with a strong knight on b5, rooks on e file, and so on, and probably objectively a slight advantage as well. So now I think that was a big moment because now it's gone. Like now he is objectively slightly worse. He must have been feeling confused, I think. I cannot imagine that he was not worried at this point because you sometimes, as you talked about, Levy, you sometimes get these positions in the Vienna or the Italian for that matter when you have this pawn on e5 that feels a little bit weak. The knight on c6 feels a bit iffy, and you just don't have a lot of nice improving moves. I think at this point it's just very unpleasant.
Yeah, I mean, I was also going to add something too. I think that when you prepare for a world championship match, or when you prepare for these turns where you want to be really solid with black, usually you are looking for something forcing. And I mean, that whole line with knight g4, like bishop c1, bishop c5, is very unclear, I think, at the end. And frankly, like to make a comparison, I feel like this is a sort of line that someone like Fabiano could very easily prepare, where it's like it's a straightforward forcing line, move by move, the whole way down the line. And yeah, after you get h3, I mean, only white can be better. And I also got the sense that after h3 was played, the only idea that black has there is to try and go knight d4 at some point. I know the computer likes some weird a4 moves, but that's just not human, frankly. And so it just felt to me like, yeah, Gukesh, I don't know. I don't know what went wrong, because obviously in the press conference they didn't talk about it, but it just seems like a case of either like, I mean, a mistaken line or I mean, just something went wrong.
So Magnus just pointed out that this move h3 for white basically stops knight g4, and black can no longer solve things in a concrete way, which does seem to be Gukesh. I mean, that is his style. So he plays a slower move h6. Guys, let's go to the knight d7 moment. It was Gukesh's way of saying, I'm not just going to sit around and have my bad position. I'm making some good moves. Knight d7, with obviously the intention to either play knight b6 or more likely to play knight c5. And Ding plays queen d2. Now, look, for folks watching at home, evaluation of the position here is around 0.6, but that's only if Gukesh, instead of playing what he does in the game, finishes the knight d7 plan concretely, plays knight c5, and the game turns into a mess. Ding has to sacrifice his rook, but he has massive amount of activity. My hot take is the game was lost here. When Gukesh played knight d7 after not playing knight g4 in favor of h6, here he played knight d7 to try to play knight c5. He hesitated, and his next move is not a good move. I've seen like Grandmaster say it's an admission your position is bad. Is that a correct assessment of the move bishop g6, Hikaru?
Well, I mean, I think we should go back a couple of moves. I think, to me, rook b8 was really the sign that things were not going well for Gukesh. I mean, I did not understand rook b8 whatsoever. I mean, not to be critical, but rook b8 reminds me kind of like when I was a child and I play against some of these really weak computer programs. You see some random move that makes no sense at all, and it just, I don't understand what rook b8 does if you're not going to play knight d4. Like, I thought the whole point of rook b8 was specifically that after, I think we got queen c2 here, that you go knight d4, and after takes, you take and then play c5, and like the rook guards the pawn on b7. Like, otherwise, I don't understand rook b8 at all. It just looks like a move that's completely pointless. So I think, for me, rook b8 was a clear sign that Gukesh was already really in deep trouble, even before we get to the knight d7 position. Because it's a move that I honestly don't know if I would even consider it. I don't think I would.
Magnus, you echo that, rook b8 and also knight d7 and bishop g6?
Yeah, it's a typical sign of that, as Hikaru said, that things have gone a little bit wrong. You have the pressure of the match. You have a position that is not great, and you're looking at ways to break out. So he goes for rook b8, intending to go knight d4. Then he looks at the position again. He doesn't really like knight d4. So then you're sort of admitting that this move is pointless. There may have been some other tactical justification that we don't see, but regardless, it's not a great look for sure. And yeah, bishop g6 is an admission of complete. I mean, that's an admission of failure of his whole plan. I don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he was hoping that Ding with his tentative play in certain games would not go for d4, but the white pieces are so perfectly placed here that if you don't go for d4 here, then especially in a must-win situation, then like what do you even do? What are you even doing, right? I guess it's hard when you look at knight c5, and it looks completely unappetizing since white has a very clear initiative and an objective advantage there. But I guess you have to try it. But honestly, Gukesh just put himself in a very bad situation from early on. So we can sit here and say this and that. He could have done better. But it's such a difficult situation to be in. So I think we gotta look earlier really to see where he went wrong. And I think we've been through that because at this point. Um, Honestly, it was not likely that against a very inspired Ding that he was going to save the game.
Hikaru, I'll ask you then.
Mhm.
Is there another critical moment from this point, or was this just Ding being a bulldozer?
I mean, I think the problem is at this point the players were using a lot of time, and so I think Gukesh, he wanted to go knight c5. That was his whole concept, and he spent probably 5-10 minutes looking at it, and then he didn't like it, and then he has to change. And just he plays a random move with bishop g6. I mean, really, I agree with Magnus. I think ultimately it comes down to probably a couple moves earlier. I think probably, I mean, the really the questions are, was knight g4 his prep, or he was already on his own? Rook b8. I mean, probably look for something different there. Those are probably the two critical moments, because yeah, after d4, it's just great for white. And I mean, Ding has not been playing well in this match at times, but when you give him one plan, literally to play d4, he's gonna play it, because if you don't go d4, there's literally nothing else in the position. So it's like making it too easy to where you force your opponent to have to play the right move. And I think, yeah, after d4, e4, I think the computer still gives black some ways to be okay, but with c5, d5, bishop f4, the weak pawn on e4, it's already, practically speaking, lost, in my opinion.
Magnus, I would like to show the both of you a position a little bit later in this game. It's kind of a funny moment. If from here Ding's play was relatively clean, straightforward, he
Let's just stop one moment quickly,
sure.
Levy, because yeah, exactly here, a4, knight e2. This was another moment where um which was similar to the knight c5, bishop g6 moment, where good or bad, like his last few moves have been leading up to knight a5 here, and yes, his position is really bad after that as well. But you have to play it. Um, if you're like, you cannot go bishop g5 and just capture on f4. Then you might as well resign. Like that is not a way ever you can ever survive this position. Just look at it. Every single white piece, first of all, he has complete harmony. Every single piece is better placed. There's just no discussion. So yeah, knight a5 might be bad concretely, but at least you get a couple of squares for your knights. You have something to hope for. Just giving up the bishop like this is just it's just very, very sad.
Yeah, let's
Yeah, I mean, or sorry, go ahead, Levy.
No, it's okay. I'm actually a little bit afraid of showing you the moment, because we might get brought back. I don't want to mess up your analysis. Like, you guys are the stars of the show, but for me, I said the question was like, from here, yeah, once knight a5 wasn't played, that was sort of the last moment of counterplay. Is it over, Hikaru? I mean, it's been on the verge of being over, but if you don't go for knight a5, is that basically it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my sense of it is that obviously Gukesh had gone wrong earlier, but I think also he was kind of hoping that Ding would make a blunder. He's hoping that Ding would do what he's done throughout the match, where he would maybe get tentative at one moment, make a mistake, or like not be super concrete with a plan. And I think it was just hope chess basically at this point when he's playing bishop g5. He's like trying to play a move with he knows knight a5 is bad, so he goes for bishop g5, and it's still, you're just hoping that Ding will make a mistake somewhere. But it's almost impossible to make a mistake with the bishop pair and all the pawns in the center. I mean, yeah, knight a5 was, I mean, it's bad, but it's the only try. Because after knight f4, bishop f4, bishop f4, I mean, there's no way to mess it up with white. I mean, literally no way. So it's over.
As we move forward,
is what I would say.
I mean, it felt like it for sure. And in all of these games where you have this kind of crushing advantage and you now have the bishop pair, you ultimately have to make your breakthrough. And he did. We can sort of show the next few moves. There's not much. And wait, that was the moment I wanted to show. So there was a lot of praise here that knight to a7 traps the rook, but d5 is kind of like a really, really practical decision. You don't allow the opponent to get this exchange, and you just go straight down the middle like the Terminator, kick the door down, and you win. And then Ding in the press conference or in the interview says, "I didn't see knight a7." Do you believe him, Magnus? Yes or no? And
yes, I do. As you said, like he's been. This is a thing. Ding has not had to calculate a single line in this whole game. He's been able to play the whole game just based on positional understanding, where he's very, very good. And I absolutely believe him that he was just laser focused. He sees on his plan, he sees that d5 is winning. No need to look at other moves. So I 100% believe him. I think he missed it, but I don't think you're ever able to not go knight a7 if you see it. I think it's as simple as that. Especially in a situation like this where he has to win, right? Um, you have that bird in your hand with knight a7. It's impossible not to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. If you see knight a7, you just play the move. He didn't see it, but the position is so great that I mean, there are many ways to win here. So I mean, if there's one thing for Gukesh, maybe that's the silver lining, is that when you look at this game, Ding still he didn't see knight a7. He maybe missed some of these tactical moves. So perhaps that's one positive you can take away. But at this point, I mean, it just shows how bad the position is, that d5 is also just crushing.
Yeah, let's just play through the rest of the moves. It was obvious. I mean, positions like this are nice. I'm sure you guys have had some really dominant positions in your careers. You just play them out, and so long as nothing, and really, there's no counterplay at this point, so you can do whatever you want. You grab a pawn, you infiltrate with the rook, you grab a second pawn, and generally, positions like this open up nice tactical possibilities to finish the game. The rook comes in, and yeah, look, it's there. There's not much left. D7 was nice. Everything was clinical. He didn't hang his queen, and even if he did, he might have still found a way to win the game. But let's not set a bad example. Yes, we know. Take. App. Let's keep going. Let's move through the moves. Let's go all the way to the end. There's not too much to see, and the nice rook sacrifice, take on f8, d8 queen. Ding wins.
That was
Ding wins
the one. Yeah, that was the one line he calculated the whole game. Rook takes g7.
And yeah,
A
he saw
three-move
it
tactic
fast.
because, as you said, like rook e8 was winning all of that. But yeah, this one was well, like it was too simple for him to not look at. Yeah, as I said earlier, this does not look like a game between two world championship caliber players. It just looks like maybe the second round or third round of an open tournament, something like this, where you play somebody who is like decent, knows openings a little bit, but then afterwards you just win with class. So we've been talking earlier like that there has been this discussion about the quality of the play, which has mostly been very good. Um, and this like being one of the most accurate world championships of all time, but everything has to be viewed in context, right? There was Ding, like he made the most obvious choice in the opening, and after that, he made a very, very good decision with h3, and he didn't make any mistakes, but there was zero pressure on put on him. If you give him the position that he had after the opening 10 times, like I think he's not going to win it anywhere near 10 times, but he's always going to put pressure um because the position is so easy to play. And there's not one thing that he did in the game that is not replicable by most very very good grandmasters. So it was a complete and utter failure of from Gukesh in this tournament situation to to basically try and to play for a draw or anything. So what I wanted to say about the accuracy and everything, like you have to make it difficult for your opponent. That's when mistakes happen. If you play like the way that Gukesh played today, it is very easy to play near perfectly.
Yeah, I was also going to talk to that point too. I think in general, when you look at this game, there were no difficult decisions. H3, I mean, if you look at it with the computer, I mean, H3 might not be the best move, but it's probably the only move in this entire game that I think was, I don't want to say difficult, but the only move where you have to actually think. Everything else was, you can just play it by feel. There's nothing difficult to it, and that's kind of the point, that when you're trying to put pressure on your opponent, you have to find something where your opponent has multiple choices on every move. And it's not just simple with this D4 idea. So I thought, yeah, it's a complete failure from Gukesh as well. He really, I think it's just basically the opening. The opening cost him, and whether it was forgotten prep or something, it wasn't meant to be for him today. And for Ding, I mean, he could not have asked for a better situation. I mean, even you look at yesterday where he was better. Like there were some complications. It wasn't so straightforward. I mean, he plays G6 instead of E6. And when there are multiple options, I mean, you can make mistakes. But in this game, there was never a moment where there were probably more than 2 moves that you ever consider after H3.
Guys, I want to now talk big picture. We've got 3 more game days left of this match, potentially. We are guaranteed 2 because it's basically down. It's a World Cup match now in chess terms. The World Cup, of course, being a 2-game classical mini match, followed by rapid tiebreaks. So before we talk even big picture of, the roller coaster of the match, where do we go from here? Like, let's start with your perception of who now becomes the favorite and to what degree the momentum has shifted back to Ding, because we've been here before where we felt momentum was with Ding, but it seems like he plays some of his best chess under the most pressure. It doesn't make any sense when he is winning the match or when he just seems to be cruising and not making any mistakes in games. He doesn't play his best. And then today he played a lights out game. So I'll start with you, Hikaru. To what degree is Ding a favorite? And can we expect him to show up for the next 2 games playing like this? Or are we going to get the Ding who is kind of happy to kill the game?
So, I mean, I think the first thing that has to be said is there's a lot of pressure on the players. And I think certainly for Ding, his mindset throughout this match, for whatever reason, has been just be solid, try to draw or basically not lose at all costs. And I think that today, because he was in a situation where there was really, I mean, there's nothing on the line. He's down 1 point. If he does something, he embarrasses himself and loses, nobody's really going to care because he has to try. So I think today was kind of the first time where he was in the situation where he felt he was very free to do what he wanted to. Obviously, the opening and the position was very, very beneficial to him. I think that going forward, he's going to have a lot of confidence. I think that actually, I mean, Magnus can talk more to this or speak more to this than I can. I got the sense that when he won yesterday, a lot of the comments he was asked in the press conference by the Indian journalist, it was as though it was like a celebratory press conference. He'd won the match. Everyone was really joyous. I think that probably didn't help the situation because it's very easy to lose focus, especially when Ding has been playing so poorly, to feel like you have it wrapped up. So I think going forward, it's very clear that Ding is the favorite. I think that this game probably unshackled him. I expect him to play aggressively, at least in his last white game, potentially. But for Gukesh, it's very rough because I also feel that when you play a long match, if you're the player who's, say, underprepared, when you have the black piece, the more and more games that go by where you're effectively undefeated, like let's assume yesterday and today are draws since they do offset, it's harder and harder to come with ideas. And I think that, for Gukesh, he's going to have to go all in. I assume he's going to go into the French in the next game with the white piece. I'd be surprised if we get anything else. But Ding is definitely the favorite at this point. I don't know how big a favorite, but definitely a favorite.
Yeah, a couple of points. I think it cannot be overstated how important openings are in chess. And we talked about this before, but we could have had a completely different uh, conversation today. Maybe Dean was feeling great. Maybe he actually was able to unwind yesterday. He had a good rest and was feeling optimistic today. There are factors like that we cannot completely know. But what happened was that he got a position that was really easy to play. So yes, he played a lights out game. Not to take anything away from that. Even with the chance that he got, he still needed to play really well. But the fact that he was allowed to get that has got to be on Gukesh, and it's different from what we've seen so far in the match. Like even though Ding has played sort of semi-weird openings, he's played the London, he's played the English before, but in those games, Gukesh didn't really let him get these positions where he can push the way that he did today. I gotta say, this reminds me a little bit of my match against Anand in 2014. So what happened there was that first of all, I won. I mean, of course, I won the first match after a shaky start. It was um, not really close, and then to everybody's surprise, Anand came back and won the candidates, and I had my sort of my problems there with motivation and everything. Uh, anyway, we get into the match. First game, I play a little bit of a shaky opening with the Grunfeld with the black pieces. Vishy has a nice idea in the opening. He gets some initiative, but I sort of managed to extinguish it. And from there on, I just like outplay him a bit, move by move, and I almost managed to win with the black pieces. Then second game, I play an anti-Berlin. Really don't get anything from the opening, and then I still end up winning. Like there was a blunder at the end, but generally um, I was putting pressure on him there without much effort. So there, after two games, I'm looking at somebody who didn't beat me in 10 games in the 11 games in the I guess it was 10 in the first match. Um, then uh, then the second match, like I'm up 1.5. I feel like I'm outplaying him, and honestly, I was just thinking that, well, this match is kind of over. I don't see how he can beat me. And for some reason, I have a little bit of a crisis of confidence in the second game. Sorry, in the third game. I play this Queen's Gambit line, which I didn't know well enough. He plays an amazing game, crushes me completely. And at that point, like I had all of these negative thoughts that I can imagine Gukesh might have now as well. That I just feel like I made this stupid decision. I gave him an open goal. Now he probably uh has his mojo back, and it's going to be a difficult match. And that was an incredibly difficult match. Like I won it, but honestly, he was putting more pressure on me more mostly he was mostly putting more pressure on me than I was on him. Uh, so I can imagine that Gukesh, for all his mental strength, he must be feeling some of the same things where it's just like, how could I? How could I just make it so easy for him today? What went wrong? I'm sure part of him is thinking, how did my team allow me to do this? Um, how could I like how could they let me play this opening in this match situation? I mean I assume like it's still his choice, but I assume that this is what they prepared, and somebody should have told him that you should at the very least know this in detail or play something else. So and then like he's just he was there as you said. He probably felt kind of the same way that this match is over. Like Ding cannot touch me with the white pieces at all. I
Did we lose Magnus?
Did we lose Magnus? I think we lost Magnus. Yeah, I mean,
Oh
I just
no.
to add to Magnus's point, yeah, we have a frozen Magnus. While he's frozen before he comes back. I was gonna add that I mean the thing is because Ding's white games were so timid, he never really put any pressure on Gukesh at all. Like you look at those London games, I mean the first London game he had a little bit of pressure, but then of course it dissipated very quickly. The other London game was nothing. You look at the you look at the E4 game, pretty dry overall. I mean, he never put pressure on him. So then it's like you think that you can do anything. I think it's like you think you can walk on water basically because he hasn't come close in any white game, and I think that leads to the situation.
Guys, I want to jump in with a quick question because Magnus made me think of something quite funny. In no other sport Can a player go to a press conference or really like anywhere in public, I would say, and say, oh, it was the coach's fault. You got to talk to the coach. We only really see this in tennis. It's almost even part of the sport in tennis. A player misses a shot and looks up at their team and screams, right? Like, just like, oh, like, why'd you get, whatever. It's almost a meme in tennis. So Magnus made me think of something funny. Like, yeah, if there was a conversation in the room there of Gukesh, what do we think you should play? Blah, blah, blah. Gukesh's style might be C45, reverse Sicilian, which we saw him play already. They kind of get him to play this. It's not a great choice. How much of that does he have to just like yell at the team and get over? How much of it is he going to have to put the blame on his own shoulders for how he played afterward, Hikaru? Like, what is that conversation like when you get a bad recommendation and now you start having these doubts?
Yeah, I mean, I think for Gukesh, it shouldn't be a big deal because honestly, he's gotten great positions out of the openings in pretty much every game. If he were getting bad positions consistently, I could see him getting angry at his team. But, at the end of the day, I would say when you lose a game, the best, you never want to lose, but the best circumstance to lose a game is where your opponent played very well and you never really had many chances in terms of trying to shake it off. And so because he had no chance and it was just an opening mistake, I think it'll be easier for him to get over this loss, and I don't really expect him to be super angry with the team. I mean, I think it just, it happens. It's unfortunate, but that's life.
Guys, I would like to get our final thoughts as we go into a rest day, followed by the last 2 or 3 days of the 2024 World Chess Championship. I'll start with you, Magnus. What are your impressions of the match so far? Give me a little split of like how it feels to watch it just as a pure spectator versus a former world champion. You could say the lineal world champion. And then I'll go to Hikaru for some final thoughts before we sign off. Unless we lose Magnus again. Then no! No, that's his thoughts. His thoughts are just, he's gone. Magnus, did you hear my question?
Yeah, I mean, the thoughts on the match so far.
And your final thoughts before we
switched
go
to
into the home
the
stretch.
wrong internet for some reason. Look, we essentially have the same situation as we did a few days ago, right? It's still tied, but instead of this deadlock, we just had a couple of insane games. I agree with Hikaru that Ding is a bit of a favorite. I still think psychologically it's hard for both players because while Ding knows that he sort of came back from the dead a little bit today, it's still he still has a lot of work to do. And he must feel that Gukesh is going to put a lot of pressure on him in the next game. Like he might get chances to essentially win the match in the next game, but he could be back to a must-win situation as well. While for Gukesh, as I talked about earlier, like it must be so frustrating to be in this situation now. He's essentially got one more game because he cannot rely on the tiebreak. Like if you get there, you get there, but there is a lot more pressure on Gukesh to actually push in the next couple of games than there is on Ding. I think there is no doubt about that. Partly because Ding, I think his chances increase with less time, as we talked about before. But also, it would just feel, I think, really disappointing for Gukesh if he is not able to win this match in regular time.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I think my final thought would be pretty much that for Gukesh, it's the same situation he was in a day ago, but having won a game and then lost, I think emotionally and psychologically, much more difficult. So I think he's going to give it everything he has in the white game, and we'll see which Ding shows up. If the Ding of today showed up, I would not be surprised if Ding wins the next game, because I think it reminds me a lot of the World Championship, the final game between Anand and Topalov. This game where Topalov had the white pieces and a Queen's Gambit declined, and Topalov went crazy trying to win the game against Anand because he knew he was a huge underdog in Rapid, and then he lost. So I think for Gukesh, that's probably the mindset for Ding. I mean, it's anybody's guess. He's been so all over the place. He's been like a mystery. At times he's played great. I've been amazed. And other times he's done things that I feel like, like I see from like a 2,500 GM. So I think it's anybody's guess which Ding shows up. But I figure if he's in a good mindset, all the momentum and just the general trends, that they are in his favor. But the next game, I suspect, will tell a lot for the outcome, obviously.
Gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Also, while staring at both of your video frames for the last hour, I realized you're both dressed like NBA head coaches on an off day. Like we have Magnus in a Clippers training jersey. We got ESPN Plus there. Hikaru repping the sports channel. ESPN, one day, maybe we'll have a little 30-minute segment on chess. And who knows, maybe we'll get this exact panel back together. We need a fourth. Kaya will be our Ernie Johnson, and we'll be Kenny, Shaq, and Charles Barkley. I'll be Charles. I'll be saying all sorts of things that'll be getting me viral. It has been an absolute pleasure. Also, I realized we never wished Hikaru a happy birthday publicly. We wished it to him before we went live. So it is Hikaru's birthday. Hikaru, I know you've got plans to host the Tournament of the Accused today. Great name. We have the Tournament of Peace in Croatia. We have the Tournament of the Accused today. All the best with that. Magnus, rest up.
But also, I haven't seen you guys, but I just want to say happy birthday to both of you guys too. Like we all have birthdays in the same area, same time of the year. So we're all celebrating birthdays.
It's the best sign. Magnus, you're Sagittarius, right? November 30th.
Yeah, I am too, and happy birthday, Hikaru. Good luck with the tournament. It's going to be interesting to follow for sure.
Magnus can't play. He wasn't officially accused, so but he's been referenced in many posts. And I feel on that note, it's great to sign off on a 1 hour recap. Maybe we'll bring it all back together for games 13 and 14. No promises, but let us know in the comments if you enjoyed. It's been an absolute pleasure. Take care, everybody, and see you on December 11th for Game 13 of the 2024 World Chess Championship.
All right, see you guys.
Enjoy. Happy birthday.